Hey guys, Derek here, and lately I've been on Linux. This is the OS for Linux Bazite, and let's get into the benchmarks. So on the left-hand side is going to be Linux Bazite, and on the right-hand side is Windows 11. I did a clean install of both operating systems. Windows is going to look a little bit more grayed out because I'm using HDR, which on Windows in-game HDR implementation on the 4K OLED monitor does look absolutely stunning. So it's noticeably like more realistic and just nicer looking in general with HDR on. So it's kind of a point to Windows here for my specific monitor. But this is the Ultra Graphics preset running at 4K on a 14900K RTX 4090 system. So we're running pretty high spec and on an NVIDIA card, which I know Linux tends to favor AMD. And hopefully we're going to get some word from NVIDIA for fixing the drivers in DX12 performance on Linux. That will be the day. So yeah, with this is the Division 2, just in case I haven't announced that. We also have Shadow of the Tomb Raider and some First Descendant gameplay to go over, and just kind of side-by-side footage and sharing some of my thoughts. So lately I've been on Linux just primarily for fun. I just love messing around, and learning a new OS has been really cool. Linux is very sleek, very fast. There's some type of like euphoric sense of freedom with Linux, and maybe I'll get into detail a little bit later on with that. It's been very enjoyable operating system to use, but since I primarily am a PC and gaming enthusiast, is it going to be worth it to cut over to Linux full time? Right now, I'm dual booting between both drives, and you see there 110 FPS on Linux to 139 on Windows. And this is running Bazite, so it is kind of like a tuned package out of the box, primarily made for gaming, which is really nice because a couple years ago I was using like an Arch Linux, like Garuda, and it was taking a lot of tuning just to try to get things to run half decent. So yeah, it was really nice to see Bazite just, I basically installed the operating system in probably under 10 minutes. I think it took like 7 minutes once I got the USB plugged in, and then I was off to the races with Bazite, where the fresh Windows install took closer to 45 minutes actually, with all of the please wait, updating, getting things ready for you. Then when you get logged in, or like once you get into the Windows operating system, please sign in with your Microsoft account or create one. There wasn't even an option to create an offline account for me. Your privacy settings, share where you are, share between devices, try Office 365 free for a month, try Copilot, blah, 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 blah. There was just like, there's so much to go through with the installation process on Windows, when Linux is just like, here you go, sir, have fun. I kind of thought of the analogy almost that like Linux, when you boot into it, feels like your mom just dropped you off at a playground and there's like a few handfuls of other kids there and they're all playing. Someone's on the monkey bar, someone's on the swing set, someone's doing a flip off the jungle gym. That's kind of how Linux feels, when Windows kind of feels like you got dropped off at university and you're going to class, and instead of doing what you want, you're doing what they want you to do, and you're sending your information and research to Microsoft, or into the teacher basically, and then maybe you made it further in life with that university, but you didn't have as much fun as you did on Linux. I know it's a weird analogy. That's kind of how it feels. Just Linux, there's some sense of freedom and like a new OS and fast, and just that you can kind of do anything without the security, the privacy, all that type of stuff being hit with Microsoft. Anyways, besides the point, getting back to the gaming benchmarks, you can clearly see here. So on left hand side, that's Linux. On the right hand side is Windows again. And this one, they were actually pretty fairly close. I had the settings as close as I could get them, because the Linux launcher for that's a little bit different, but this is as close as the settings could get. If not, they're actually 1-to-1. There was just no ray tracing option, so I left that off for the benchmark on Windows as well. But we are seeing, again, just favorable in gaming performance on Windows, and that is, I believe, because of the NVIDIA closed off drivers. Like, they haven't really given Linux developers much to work with yet on that. So really hoping that can improve in the future. Of course, another con of Linux would be games that are like competitive FPS. I think Counter-Strike's fine. But again, something like Battlefield or Call of Duty with these kernel level anti-cheats that just won't really work on Linux. Maybe they'll have a workaround for that in the future. I'm not sure. But if we look at the benchmarks here, I believe this was Linux coming in at 166 FPS. Again, this is on 4K at a really, like, all the settings on, and then 178 on Windows. So fairly close. Probably if you're playing, you're not going to notice that much of a difference there. This one, the FPS is pretty small. This is the first Descendant. I just did kind of a 400% mission, just kind of fighting the last zone and a boss here. And you can see on the left-hand side, just like running around as Bunny with the electricity and a lot of stuff happening on the map. This is all medium graphic settings on both Windows and Bazzite, running with the same FOV, same everything. Just trust me on that. So you're seeing there's about 127 FPS on the left and 154 FPS on the right. So a noticeably smoother experience on Windows, both with controller input latency and just general visual smoothness of the image. And that's one thing with Linux as well. My GameSir Cyclone 2 controller gets picked up as a PlayStation controller, but won't connect as an Xbox controller. So I have to do another layer in Steam to get it to work as an Xbox controller, which is kind of interesting, where on Windows it just kind of works. But yeah, that's the first Descendant, and I go to this spot here. This is on Linux, just to look over where I killed the boss, basically, and then look over to the left just to see the FPS, and then I'll do the same thing on Windows. So about 133 FPS there, and then on Windows, the exact same spot, we're looking at about 164 FPS. So the question for me then is, should I continue to dual boot? Should I make the cut over to Linux, or should we be sticking with Windows? So I think the three main reasons why I wouldn't be going over to Linux just yet. One, of course, I'm on an NVIDIA card, and gaming performance is just all around better on Windows with NVIDIA-based systems at the moment. Two, HDR implementation within the game. I can select the HDR button, and on this specific monitor, I've had TVs and monitors in the past that say they support HDR, but then it just looks gray or washed out or not very good. On this particular monitor, it's night and day difference on how good the game looks with its colors and contrast and all that. So the HDR is a big thing for me. Any game that has an HDR option, I'm going to be using that on this current setup that I'm using with the Aorus 4K OLED monitor. And three is the support for competitive shooter anti-cheat such as Battlefield 6. That's going to be a pretty big game for me that I'm going to want to spend a good amount of time in. And on Linux, I don't think I would be able to do that. Even in 4K, though, when I play Battlefield, since I'm a pretty competitive when it comes to games and shooters, for online play, I do put my graphic settings as low as possible. If Windows is going to get me an extra 10 FPS even, or even an extra like 5 FPS, I'm going to be using Windows just to get the maximum, smoothness, the least amount of input latency, trying to be as hardcore as you can be. I know the operating system itself might not be as slick, and as I think Linux is just kind of nicer to use, generally speaking, outside of gaming. But if Windows is going to give me that little extra oomph in performance, especially competitive shooters, that's what I'm going to be using for sure. So basically, I'm going to keep dual booting for now. I'm mainly playing older games right now. So I'm playing First Descendant, which isn't that old of a game, but that I'll probably continue to play on Windows just because of the HDR and more FPS. But I'm also playing Turtle WoW, which is like a private server WoW game that's free, which has been kind of neat. And I'm also playing some Age of Empires 2 lately. So just some of these like older or single player or more offline style games where I'm just chilling out. I'll put on some music and just sit on Linux and play those older games, whereas something more competitive, I'll probably play on Windows. But what I've noticed thus far, and like I said, Linux is kind of like a playground. I think that the customization in Linux, like the options are going to be there to do whatever you kind of want. The resource usage is low. I've counted on a fresh OS install, which also comes with Steam. I counted 88 processes running in Linux, when on Windows, a fresh OS with literally nothing installed, the first thing I did is boot in and count the amount of processes. I had 144. So even with Steam, and I think I might have had Discord when I counted Linux, it was 88 processes running, and with literally nothing. And I went in and closed as much crap as I could on Windows, set all the privacy stuff to off, set all the widgets as much as I could off, and I was sitting at 144 processes running. So there is just general overhead with Windows and extra bloat and stuff like that. So with Linux, you don't have to worry about that. And then just, I guess, security in general. I think there's less people trying to make viruses for Linux. If anything, the people making the viruses are using Linux and attacking Windows people. So yeah, that's basically gonna kind of sum it up at this point in time. I think if you're on an AMD card, Linux is probably the way to go if you're not playing competitive online shooters that require that crazy level of anti-cheat. I'm gonna keep dual booting for now because I just like the OS and I like tinkering and testing and benchmarking in hopes that maybe NVIDIA will come out and support Linux people a bit more. But yeah, just the efficiency of Linux, the speed, I think I have a meme here. I'll pull it up. The Linux requesting to end a task versus Windows or whatever. It's just like, it's just no questions asked. It's just gonna shut it down for you basically. And that's kind of how Linux feels. Like it's not pressuring you into doing anything. There's no ads. There's no automatic forced updates where I shut my computer down and it just can't shut down or turn back on without doing a forced update. I'm in more control of that of Linux. So really, if I wasn't gaming, I would be using Linux, whether that be Mint or Bazzite or another distro, CatchyOS or whatever, for more work stuff. But yeah, that's probably gonna do it for this video. So Windows is still the clear winner for NVIDIA in video game performance and just general compatibility. But I'm probably gonna keep Linux and keep an eye out for those NVIDIA drivers. So hope you guys liked the video, and if you have ever experienced Linux, maybe throw that comment down below, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.